line with me here, I have Ginette Matacia Lucas. And Ginette is the daughter of a famous treasure hunter that shared a few things with me when I was first getting started. But Lewis had a secret, and that was his daughter Ginette. And so I'm excited to talk with you today, Ginette, about Lewis's secret, which was you. And with that said, tell me a little bit about yourself.
What do they say? Let's talk.
Let's talk.
Well, let's talk. So, all right. So, basically, my father was heavy into the paranormal when I was about 7, and we lived in Northern Virginia. And because I was very familiar with it, I had my very first near-death experience about age 7.
Wow.
And was given information that my whole life was going to change at 27. And it did. At 27, I had a near-death experience, and I was very familiar with being a psychic. I was already a psychic. I was making good money as a psychic when I was a kid, 20 an hour. And but I was my kidneys failed, and I was in the hospital for about two weeks, and I had a near-death, and it told me, as I met with the big guy, I don't want to say Jesus, but I want to say the big guy. And so I've used a lot of this for my platform of, we all have a mission. It can be treasure hunting. It can be missing persons. It can be mysteries. And so I took my information from the other side because I got to come back. And he said, I want you to go do this, this, and this. And I said, okay, I got a mission. So I became a full-time psychic, and I worked on true crime, treasure hunting, mysteries, missing objects. And it was odd. It was almost as if everything fell into like I was a peg falling into a hole. It was really interesting. And so I've been successful pretty much in almost every area of the paranormal, except I do run from demonology. It sort of scares the Jesus out of me. And I mean, we all have our missions, but I have limits to my missions. And I mean, do you have your worst fears of any kind of unusual circumstance? I bet you do.
Well, I think I'm afeared of the unknown, and you hear these demonology type things, evil spirits and that, and I don't know if they're real or not, but well, I had a ghost experience here several years ago, and so I'm a lot more open-minded than I used to be, but that fear of the unknown kind of scares me. But it's interesting that you told me that you have the near-death experience. You met with the big guy. You had a mission, because I know several people, and one person in particular, who was given the information on how to build a piece of equipment that would locate treasure. He brought that back with him from the other side. So it's interesting to me that you're saying that you was given information on how to help. Was there a specific reason you was given this? I mean, it was to help humanity, or just help people, or
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think it is humanity. I mean, mine is more, come back and help find missing persons, find treasure, or the foundation of our life, which is, being born on this earth, and archaeology. I do mysteries. I locate missing objects. And of course I do find missing animals, both cat and dog. The cats are the hardest. I'm not going to lie to you. Woo! They are hard. And the dogs are a lot easier, just giving you a general idea. Dogs have a pattern. Cats don't always have a pattern. Humans have a pattern. And when I came back, I was thinking to myself, now how am I going to get started with this? And the very next day, after I got out of the hospital, my father was approached to help with some true crime casework. And I helped with that. But it was a good learning lesson, because the people were creeps. And they were not affiliated with the police like they said they were. And so you learn from the bad, the good, the ugly, the great. I mean, it's really interesting. And so I learned what to feel is negative, positive, etc. And so it's a lot of fun. but like I said, I do have my limits. I mean, you know, I'm not going to lie. I get scared just as much as the next guy. I was not scared of dying because it happened so quickly. And it was my third one. The fourth one, I wasn't real happy about. I was in the hospital getting surgery, and it was a whole different ball game. It was a bunch of angels came down and were trying to heal me because I had a tumor, a very large tumor, and they were cutting it out. And there's a reason for sharing this with you, is that when the tumor was coming out, the anesthesiologist stole the anesthesia from my surgery. He got caught, so I felt the surgery.
Wow.
And I was crying. I remember feeling it, and I was crying, and I had tears. And I remember the nurse saying, "Why does she have tears?" And then I remember floating above my body, and these angel-type beings came down and were pushing me back into my body, and they were screaming up to God, "Hey, we need help here." And all of a sudden, the next thing, instead of 2 angels, it was like 8 angels pushing me back in my body. So that is certainly a mystery, but what was nice is eventually I had no pain. When you die, all your pain is released, all your pain is gone. Thank you, God. But I came back, and the doctor told me that I had died on the operating table. Am I okay? And I was like, well, I'm alive and I'm here. So, yeah. And he goes, do you want to sue us? And I said, no, because you saved my life. And they didn't tell me at the time the other doctor was stealing the anesthesia. I saw it in the newspaper a few years later.
Wow.
And that he had killed a few people. And they talked about the dates and the times and everything and which doctors. And I was like, oh, my God, that's a match. That's me. So I made it. And of course, other people didn't. But the other side is very loving and caring. And yeah, some people do get missions when they come back, and some people get changed dramatically. I was open to it. I just didn't know where to start with it. And but when I was a kid, I will say I wanted to be an archaeologist or a geologist, or I don't want to say I was nosy. I was very inquisitive. And which goes in the direction of treasure hunting or archaeology or geology, that kind of thing.
No wonder I like you, Ginette. Man, you're right up my alley.
Yeah, anything to do with finding stuff is, you know, it's really fun. Plus, if you find it, then you shock yourself and say, "Whoa, I did that." So I'm sure I frequently get shocked myself on whatever I find. You know. I mean, I find so many things. Sometimes I just get surprised. Of course, when it comes to animals, man, those animal lovers can treat you very badly, especially if it takes you a long time to find their animal, or if you can't find it and you tell them you got a 50-50 shot, you're just paying for my time. Those people can be very vindictive. Oh, you took advantage of me. You know, you called me. I don't call people. They call me. And I try to make people aware of the fact when you work with a team of treasure hunters or mystery hunters or ghost hunters, you know, be selective. Be careful who you work with, because most of the people are pretty much easygoing. You just have to remember you have your little inner circle and you have your boundaries. And I'm sure you do too. I mean, you asked me one time about somebody who'd called you and given you a bunch of information, and you were wondering if he was telling the truth. And sometimes you've got those 50%ers who basically have a possible treasure, but then they exaggerate that it's incredible. Yeah. You know, and you say to yourself, is it really that incredible? And I had to tell you, no, it's not, and he's not there. But it's okay. I bet he still hasn't found it, you know. I mean, God love my dad. He was so determined that he found the Beale treasure. And I kept saying to him, Dad, this is fake. It's fake. It's fake. And he goes, are you sure? And I said, yeah, there's nothing there. And he goes, I know where it is. I said, no, you don't. And it was a fight. I mean, you know, not every relationship or project you work on is going to be perfect, you know. I mean...
So with that said, you know, what you do is another tool in your arsenal for what somebody could use to, just like dowsing, just like, you know, to help you locate treasure, or to even know if you're searching for something that's even real. You know, why waste your time if the treasure's not even real and it's not even there? Why waste your time? And so, you know, that's a great point. And like I said, I used to be a skeptic of. I think just like dowsing, I think there's something to it. It doesn't really work for me. I've watched people do it and dig a lot of empty holes, but I think there's something there. I think it'll get you close. I think what you do will get you close and let you know if it's real, and then from there, use the electronic equipment to get you right pinpointed and right on it.
I think on each and every project, I call it the equation. You can use your dowsing ability or your psychic ability plus the equipment. And then sometimes on true crime, you use the dog, of course, the canine. And I tell people, don't forget, even though you're a team, that piece of equipment is still part of the team. And a lot of people forget that, and they think, somebody was on the internet the other day, and what kind of pointer do you use, all these little things matter for your success ratio. So it's definitely treasure hunting, mystery hunting, true crime is so complicated. That's why I decided to come on. I was like, let's talk about failures, successes, yo-yo heads,
so
a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So with that, tell me a success story that you had, Ginette, because you're just not some ordinary girl. You're one of the top people in the country, in the nation. You're one of the top. And so tell me, one of your adventures, one of your, even something with your dad, that you helped your dad with, or somebody else.
Sure. Well, I it's probably talked about too much now, but I was fortunate enough to go to a conference in Chicago years ago. I guess I was in my 30s, and I'm now early 60s, and I still treasure hunt. I'm not going to stop, even if I'm 90. But I was invited to a conference, and I called my dad, and I said, oh, my God, Ingo Swan is going to be at the conference. We got to go there. I believe that you need to talk to many experts in the field, whatever the topic is, and use that to your advantage to become successful. And we got there, we did decide to go, and we got there, and Ingo had just finished his lecture because we were late because Chicago traffic. And I was lucky enough that when he came out of his conference room, which I thought it was going to be maybe 100, 200 people, and the conference was like 5,000 people.
Wow.
And he almost ran me over, said he was sorry. And then he walked down the hall about 100 feet, turned around, looked at me, came back, and he goes, who are you? And that was really cool. And I said, I'm Ginette Matacia, and this is my father, the famous military dowser. And he goes, but who are you? And I said, well, I'm just a fan of yours. We missed your lecture. And he goes, no, but really, who are you? And I was thinking, what? I'm a psychic. I work on all sorts of stuff, fun stuff, treasure, archaeological digs, that kind of thing. And he goes, keep it up. You're gonna find something. And I thought that was really odd, because I would never ask somebody in his position to say, hey, what do you think of me and my work? That would be rather imposing. At any rate, he walked off, and I saw him talking to a couple of people, and they walked down to my father and I. So he's now back at 100 feet away at the hotel, and these people walk up to us, and they said, are you Ginette? And I said, yes. And I just saw them talking to Ingo, and they go, well, we're treasure hunters, and we were wondering if you could talk to us. And I said, absolutely. What are you looking for? And he goes, well, no, we're treasure hunters. I said, okay. And I'm sure you get the same thing. I'm a treasure hunter. And
yep.
Like the cartoons, Minnie Mouse, Mickey Mouse. I'm a treasure hunter today. and I said, yeah, I'm Minnie Mouse. Okay. So I said, all right. And they go, we want to get a reading, and we want to get a pinpointing on a treasure we have. And here's where I tell people that the cool thing about treasure hunting is it's really critical that when you go after a treasure, even if you have 60 maps, make sure it's a story that seems authentic. Like mine was mafia related, and they brought like 60 maps to the table. And what I do is I make people get a reading about them first. Like, let's say I'm talking to you and you have 60 maps. I say, hey, let me give a reading to you. So then what I could tell is whether or not you're going to find something, and then whether or not you're around the wrong people who could kill you, or whether or not your equipment needs to be changed out. So all these details are critical to success.
That is critical.
It is. It's goofy. But, like, let's say I said, oh, don't take your great nephew who's going to kill you in the field, take the money and run. So I read them, and I said, yeah, I think you are going to be treasure hunters. And they, like I said, they brought in 60 maps, and I touched one of their maps. I was probably at map number 30, and when I touched it, my hand got burnt like a cigarette.
Wow.
Touching a hand, and touching it, burning a hand. And when I opened it, my teeth started hurting really bad. And then every time I touched it, I felt like somebody took a lighter and was burning my hand.
Really?
And I kept thinking, wait a minute, hot? What does that mean? You're hot on the subject matter. Like, have you ever heard that the cliche, oh, that woman is hot, or that project is hot? And I thought to myself, maybe I'm being told that this is a hot treasure. And we decided to roll out that map, and I pinpointed a spot. And of course I had like 200,000 acres. It was a crazy amount of acreage. And I thought, God, how am I going to find this treasure? The rumor was that it was a mafia treasure. It was a robbery with Al Capone's gang, and it was hidden by Frank Nitti. He was also known as Frank Nito, from Chicago. So it was a 1930s, 1928, 30s treasure hidden. And it was very south of Chicago. And I pinpointed a spot, and eventually the guys went out, and they did a 10 by 10 area, and they used a ground penetrating radar. It looks like a lawnmower for those who don't know. And when they did, they found something, and they thought, okay, let's dig here. So they called me, and they said, we found something. They dug, and they went about 2 feet, and they found a truck hood. And they called me back and said, well, you were wrong, Ginette. It's a truck hood. And I said, no, my teeth are still going crazy. You're not on top of it. So I said, remove the truck hood and let me know what's the date of the truck hood. And they called me back and they said, well, that's weird. It's like a 1930 pickup truck hood. And I said, and what year is it, Princess? So it was probably in the 80s, early 90s. And they said, God, Ginette, it's 1930s and it's now the 1980s, 1990s. That's weird. And I said, dig that out, put it aside, and use the GPR again. And when they did, the GPR was even more efficient and reacted in a larger scale. And so they decided to dig. So I think they dug at least another 2.5 feet or something. And that's when they started finding over 60 bars of silver. So it was marked from the U.S. government. So I have a picture somewhere here at the house. I have pictures of it, but the problem is my dad, when we got a piece of it, when we got one of the pieces of the silver bars, my father was robbed in D.C.
I think I remember him telling me about that.
Yeah, that was the only one he had.
I might have a picture of that, maybe.
Yeah. I have a picture of it, but what I have somewhere in my photos is not only a picture of the brick, but a number from the brick. And I'd like to contact the Department of Treasury and say, hey, does this ring a bell of where it was robbed? Was it Boston, south of Boston? Was it south of Chicago? Because it had to have been, it was a numbered and stamped U.S. government. And I think that I kept telling the people, I said, you really need to take this treasure, turn it in. There's got to be a reward for it. And you could get a movie deal. I mean, you'd make more money from the movie deal than you would the silver. And so they decided to smelt it. And I thought,
terrible.
Okay. Yeah, I do tell people, think about it before you react, because, there are treasures out there. There are rewards. And you can call the local media and say, hey, this is what we found. And you'll get people to call you and say, hey, you want to do a movie deal? I mean, it's impressive. I mean, I was shocked I found it. But again, my teeth went crazy and I had the burning sensation on my finger. And I have found more items from the Dark Ages over in Austria, and I found some other items. So I'm pretty consistent, but the biggest problem I have in this field is people don't want to pay for my time. So I tell them, okay, well, I'm sure somebody out there will help you. I'm not sure who, but keep looking, because I don't have time. I'm writing a book now, and I do radio shows frequently, and I tell people it's really important that you pay your professionals or your experts when you get help. Don't sit there and think they're free. I mean, people write me notes all the time. I need you to find this, this, and this, and I'll pay you a commission. Oh, okay. Which means they're not going to pay me, because they just don't. They don't take it seriously.
100%. You know, you're right. Your time's valuable. People's times are valuable, and when you're somebody as professional and as famous as you know, you have people from all over the world tugging at you, wanting you to help them, and you just don't have time. You know, I get a little bit of that, and I'm nothing like you, but you know, with my YouTube channel, I have people emailing me all the time, and I just, you know, I have to work for a living to pay for what I love to do, but I just physically don't have time, and I get so far behind in the emails that I just don't have time to get caught up, and I feel bad about it, but that's just the way it is, you know. So
yeah, oh yeah, you could get 10 in one day, and you look at them and you say, oh, I'll respond to this one, but then you may have 10 more in spam that you never even received.
Yep.
So, and then you had 50 more the next day that you can't even sit down and review.
Yeah, and that's the problem I get. You know, sometimes I get 100 emails a day, and I just do not have time to get to them, and I feel bad about it, but it's just the way it is.
Wow, that's horrible. Yeah, fortunately, I don't get that many, but I do get 5 to 10 a week on ridiculousness of, I just want you to do this, and it's almost as if they think it's my duty. But I did want to tell you, the good news is, shifting gears here and not being random, my student is available to get on the phone and to give some examples of some of our work together. If you want to get him on the phone, I don't know if you can do that.
Let's do it. I can. What's the number, and I'll three-way him in.
Okay, so his name is Jim. So he's on 954-534-6611. And I don't mind giving out his number or my number, so it's totally fine that you keep this for your listeners. I can give that out. Do you want to give out your number too then, or? Sure, I can. 571-358-1444. 571-358-1444. But I do tell people, remember, I'm on the East Coast, you know, and if you're calling, keep that in mind. Somebody wrote me a note this morning at 4 a.m. I was, gee, thank you. Can you talk right? Can you talk right now? I was like, sleeping. Go away. You know, did you ever write that? Sleeping, go away.
Yeah. Okay, so Ginette, why don't you introduce Jim to us?
All right. So what happened through the years is I wanted to pass on my technique for treasure hunting, archaeological work, using parapsychology or the paranormal, whichever you want to call it. And I got a call from this weirdo by the name of Jim Perk, who I talked to. And he goes, I really want a mentor or a teacher. And I thought to myself, oh, yeah, here we go, a wannabe. And eventually he kept calling, being pretty persistent, but he was quite on the money. And I thought, okay, I can do this. So he paid me for my time, and we chat back and forth, and we work on anything and everything.
Quite frankly, it was my energy, because I'm sweet, lovable, kind, and innocent.
So I just want to say, you know, you don't hardly ever, never hear about parapsychology dealing with treasure hunting. You know, it's always talking about, you know, people wanting to get in touch with their loved ones, the afterlife, you know, things like that. But and that's why I say, you know, that Louis Matacia had a secret weapon, and that was you, Ginette. So
I like that. Thank you. That you know, I'm actually very humble, but I'll take it. I have another secret weapon. Jim is pretty impressive too. I do want to share something with your listeners that I found out that I have I used to call my skills cray-cray, and I found out I have a skill called synesthesia. SYNESTHESIA, and it's an ability to see colors and numbers and dates and names. And a lot of remote viewers, I shouldn't say a lot, a few remote viewers have it. Jim has it. I had to convince him. He was on the fence about it, but I learned about synesthesia through Maureen Seberg. And the only thing I can tell you is read up more about Maureen Seberg and people with synesthesia. Only 4%, that number 4% of the world has synesthesia.
Huh.
And I'm wondering if that could have come from my near-death experience or from being born with it, because I know Jim has it. I've met a couple other psychics like Angela Ford who has it. But it's certainly a helper, because if you start recognizing what you're seeing, plus you add on your remote viewing, or Jim does tarot, it really increases your accuracy rate on looking for a missing object or whatever mystery or treasure you're working on. So Jim can tell you about some of the things I've sent him some projects. Today, later, he and I are going to work on a missing dog or stolen dog. We have you, Terry, and I, and the ladies, your friends, are talking about the Susan Powell case. So, Jim, go ahead. You tell them a general idea about what your background a little bit and some of your psychic tools.
Well, I never considered myself psychic. I always had just something. It was just things I remembered and things I just knew. When I was a kid, crawling around and stuff, I remember crawling funny because I didn't crawl like a kid, like one leg than the other. I just moved my hips and dragged both legs up because I remembered doing that when I was in the Army, in a previous life. And I had that, and that's always stuck with me. Knowing and having a few out-of-body experiences, I realized that when you're out, you're not dealing with a door, you're not dealing with a wall, you're dealing with the idea of the wall. You're dealing with the idea of the door. And that stuck with me. And when I studied remote viewing and they talked about you're just receiving the data, everything clicked. Everything pulled together. And a lot of things, just how they explained it, how the data comes through, and how you filter it, because your own personal biases or your hopes and wishes get in the way. Where you have, like Ginette says, just the facts. Just give me the facts. And that statement right there is a clarifier. It's a filter, and it helps clean up the information you're getting. Like like Ginette says, when she deals with a missing child, of course you want that child to be alive. You want it to be healthy. You want to find them. But it's easier for her to deal with a second party or a third party, not directly with the parents, because that way she can filter out just the facts.
Yeah.
Because your emotions will get in the way. And when you just remember you want the facts, you'll get the better results.
Yeah, I do want to say one thing on that, where a lot of people, Terry, when you work on treasure and when you work on missing persons or mysteries, you get all excited and your emotions are at a high, like you're bipolar, and you keep thinking, oh, well, they probably did this or they probably did that. You don't want to think about that. Like Jim said, just the facts. Don't worry about how they buried it.
And don't worry about what you're going to do with it when you find it. That's where people that's where trips people up. They are too busy, like, oh, I'm going to find it and this and that. And they see their whole life blossoming from that. Mm-hmm. Fame, fortune, and, their life will, elevate socially and economically. And that stuff you really have to take that erroneous data and put it off to the side and just deal with, is it here or not?
Yeah, like, I'll just give you an example. On the Casey Anthony case, which is what I worked on, one of my cases, the first thing I thought to myself, is she deceased or is she alive? And so those are the facts. And then once you go from that step, you go to, where is she? Is she at the same place, or is she being moved, that kind of thing? And that's the problem with treasure hunters. treasure gets moved all the time. I mean, you know, the Spanish come in, they hide it at one spot, and then they go back and move it, or all these other factors. And don't worry about all this. Oh, they were so excited they had treasure. They were so excited that they got to put it in a box. I mean, who gives a crap? What you want to think about, excuse my language, is it in a box? Is it? Am I looking for a box? Because sometimes if you're looking for a box, you're not looking for gold. You're looking for gold in a box. And a lot of people don't think, and that's just the facts. You want to think about, is it in a bag? Is it next to the roots of a tree? I mean, it's a little complicated. I use 2 or 3 methods, or more than that. And a lot of people are thinking, oh my gosh, we could sit here and have a meal just where they sat. Well, that's great, but that doesn't find you treasure.
Yeah. So I want to go back real quick to something Jim said, you know, and you said earlier, Ginette, you know, that you like to give people a reading because you want to know who you're dealing with, who they're dealing with, and it's important to know your partners. You don't know how many people I have talked to that got cheated, got shot at, got, you know, by their partners. You know, so something you said, Ginette and Jim, you know, that you want to know who you're dealing with, who your partners are. That's kind of important to know. Is your partner got gold fever? Because there's people that get gold fever. You don't want to be around them guys when there's something found, because I've seen some of them guys, and you do not want to be anywhere near them guys if something's found. So.
Oh yeah, my father was sponsoring a couple of people to go out and do some treasure hunting. So he bought the equipment, $30,000, paid for the events of the guys to go out. So he's paying for the gas, the food, the hotels. They found stuff, and then eventually 2 years later they told him, "Oh, we found all the Spanish stuff, but we sold it. This is historical stuff from the Spaniards, and we're sorry we did it, but I still have your machine. I can't send it back right now." The one guy still has my dad's machine.
Wow.
He's still charging $5,000 if you use it per day. He won't give it back.
Wow.
And they find this historical Spanish stuff, and they just sell it to the best buy. And it makes you think, what kind of people are these? You know, so my dad may have spent $50,000, and they make a bunch of money, and they screw him, and they still want to be friends. They still think they're friend worthy.
Yep.
So Jim and I talk about team members all the time. You know, is this a worthy project? You know.
Well, Ginette, are you allowed to talk about what you're working on in the Philippines, or you have to keep that quiet?
Yeah.
Okay.
About that, yeah.
What is I forget? What is the Japanese? Remember Yamashita?
Yamashita. Yep.
Okay. Now, Ginette was talking to someone in the Philippines, and along came these Korean and Japanese businessmen, and I'm using my fingers as bunny ears, businessmen. And you would, you know, they're probably organized crime or related to that. And they come and offer the man a large sum of money. We're talking 7 zeros.
Wow.
Okay. And to buy his land. And he's like, no, I'll keep it. Now, first off, when somebody like that offers you money, take it. because they're going to end up.
They're going to get it one way or another, huh?
Yes, and maybe you could do it without having an accident.
Yeah.
And the other is, Yamashita left booby traps. Like Ginette told me that some people went into the caves and they jumped down, and there was these clay pots full of mustard gas. Well, they died immediately. They got, you know, so these people have the bucks to get it. So let them.
Yep.
Your treasure doesn't have to be gold and silver. If somebody offers you cash for the land, that's treasure too. Just take it.
Jim, that's good advice, Jim. That's good advice.
Yeah, you know, you got people that say, "Oh, instead of 7 figures, I could do 8 figures." But oh my God.
That's what I'm saying. You know, you just look at the facts and try to get out of the greed, because you could disappear and that land could go up for sale. It just, they're going to get it one way or the other. You might as well come out ahead. You're going to have more money than you ever dreamed of anyway.
Ahead and alive.
Yeah, exactly. You're alive. I have a case right now where one of those guys was offered 7 figures, and I pinpointed the area, and I said, this is the tunnel, this is that, gave all the detail. And let's call him Mr. Chu. He's definitely Filipino. Well, guess what? After we gave him the information, he has disappeared. We've never heard from him in 3 months.
Wow. Well,
that worries me. Is his phone tapped? Is he dead? Did he call the Koreans and say, oh, yeah, by the way, I got a psychic found this for me. What do you think? Well, he may have opened his mouth. They've got the access to the property, and he could be dead. I mean, nobody has ever seen him in 3 months.
Wow.
I'm talking about family members, and they've sent people down there to find him. Nothing. I mean, that's very concerning.
Yep.
Yeah, they're gonna come up with a once in a lifetime offer, and you say thank you. Because even they come up with a large figure, millions of dollars, it's still a fraction of what's worth probably underground. That stuff's still underground. This stuff is in your hand. Yep. Bird in the hand type of thinking is what you really need. I got a bird in the hand and 2 in the bush. Which one's going to work? Which one works better for you?
Yep.
So I just find it fascinating. I mean, some of the Filipinos have found some items. I mean, not just the ones that you see in the news. They found the gold head and so forth. There's other people that have found things. And, okay, so let's say it's $1 million, and the family isn't educated how to put the money away and save and so forth. And Grandpa goes out and spends half of it at a casino.
Yep.
I mean, there's all sorts of trouble that goes with treasure hunting.
Oh, once you find the treasure, that's when your trouble begins. You got it from the bad people. You got it from the government. You've got it. I mean, you could get hit from all sides.
Yeah. When you find a treasure that's popular, and people are looking for it, think of the Oak Island treasure hunters. Everybody's up there digging. My feeling is that stuff disappeared over 300 years ago. The smart ones took it and left,
and never said
and they didn't tell anybody. They didn't tell anybody they got it, and they kept people go in there and keep digging, and left them alone. I mean, it's genius on their part, but sooner or later you got to give up the ghost.
Saying that, some of the old treasure hunters, they would leave a clue. They would never say a word, but they'd leave a bucket upside down or some kind of a clue to let the next treasure hunter come by, know that it was there, but it's gone. They would leave a clue. So,
the empty bucket symbol, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Guess what's here? Nothing. Okay.
A no thing. These, that's all.
Yeah, and Jim and I were talking about what would be nice to present to your audience is, I'll let him tell the story about Miss M. We called her Miss M. She's in Florida, a single woman, and her treasure hunting was relationships and that kind of thing, and she wanted a really nice base. Jim, you want to take over and talk about it? We have Miss M and Miss N for Nancy, so M for Mary and 1 for Nancy, and they're just examples of you have to get your own personal act together before you become a treasure hunter or mystery hunter.
People want that perfect relationship or that perfect find, and they're all, but they're coming from a place of being imperfect. They're, water seeps its own level, as my dad would always say. Ginette and I always talk about, if you're out there and you're trying to attract partnerships or alliances, and you keep getting people like Lenny and Squiggy, that's where you are.
Yeah.
Okay. The guy with the metal detector, he thinks he's always talking about the car he's going to buy, or the house he's going to buy, or the trips he's going to take, instead of the guy who's doing practical work. You know, like somebody who's like Richie, somebody slow and steady, quiet, doesn't have a lot of flash. And anyone, humility I think, is the biggest trait for success.
Yep.
You gotta be grounded and humble, and you'll attract that partnership that's equal to that. It's a lot better, somebody grounded. If you're not grounded, you're going to get the gold fever people.
Yep. You even have, so we'll talk about Miss N for Nancy. The other thing I tell people is, if you're meant to find a treasure, so let's say it's 100 bars of gold, and you hook up with maybe the Lenny and Squiggies, but you're meant to be with people that are experts in their field, like geologists, scientists, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So let's say you come in and you talk to me, and I say, you're wasting your time with Lenny and Squiggy, but you're gonna eventually meet the geologists, the scientists, and so forth, and that teamwork is gonna pay off. Now, people don't always listen, but you're better off working with the people that are on the same level as you. There's always plenty of Lenny and Squiggies out there.
Yeah, Lenny and Squiggy are fun, but the other ones know how to do the job.
And, I guess the other thing is, people always ask me, what kind of equipment do you use? Well, I don't, because I'm very fortunate that most of my treasure hunters they call, they all have their own equipment. I have one guy in Indiana that has really good equipment, and I have another guy in Arizona, and he called, and he's about to buy a piece of equipment that was used for archaeology. It's about $18,000, and it goes, so we're working on some Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid work, and it's really interesting. You stick this rod in the ground, and it can pick up, like if you put in the machine any gold or metal, and I select an area, it can go 2.5 miles in a radius, and it can go 100 feet deep. Now, let me think. Would I like to work with that, or would I like to work with Lenny and Squiggy?
Yeah, some of
I
that.
hope your listeners get the Happy Days references.
Some of that equipment, is pretty technical, and they say that stuff works like that. But some of that stuff doesn't quite work like they advertise it does. So, but if that's something used by the government, by archaeologists, it probably is something good.
It's from Germany, Egypt. My dad's equipment came from Switzerland and Germany. A lot of the Swiss and German people do dowsing, so they both combine both the dowsing, the parapsychology, and the treasure hunting at the same time. But they did find a bunch of archaeological digs with the equipment, so it's not American equipment. I do get a lot of calls regarding equipment, but again, my clients have the equipment. I tell them frequently, go read up on the ratings or the reviews, go talk to other treasure hunters, go get in other groups of treasure hunters. I have a client who monthly joins the groups that go out to like 300 acres, and you buy a lot and you get to go metal detected. But some of that stuff has been metal detected and metal detected and metal detected. People are still hot on the KGC, I guess it's called.
Yep.
Treasure that has not been found yet. There's a lot of treasure out there that has never been found. I just get amazed at the phone calls I get. Oh, did you know in Minnesota alone there were some mafia guys that their treasure, their robberies and money has never been found.
Huh.
And enough with this Geraldo and the empty safe. You don't have to stick to one mafia guy, Al Capone or Frank Nitti. There's so many others out there that the Italians were collecting most of the money, so they have it hidden somewhere. And of course, I have some ideas about how they hid it and where they hid it, but they're not going to put it in a safe that sits there and waits for you to open it.
Yep.
That's just ridiculous.
Yep. Hey, I was going to say, that there are people out there that some of this equipment is really expensive. A new ground penetrating radar, $40,000, and then you got to learn how to use it. If you could have the best metal detector in the world, or the best ground penetrating radar in the world. But if you don't know how to use it, you don't know how to interpret it, it's worthless to you. So there is guys out there that have this equipment, that know how to use it, that you can hire. It's not cheap. It's I'm gonna say $1,000 a day. It's not cheap, but if you're positive you got something and you need it to get to the next level, it's a lot cheaper than you buying your own equipment and spending the months or years learning how to use it. It is cheaper to hire them in the long run.
Yeah, they have training classes. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I'm saying like 400 or 500 years ago, they didn't have ground penetrating. That's why dowsers were used. I mean, they were the Catholic Church had a priest who would douse, where they're going to build a monastery. He asked them where to find the water.
Really?
Or and then they had in Germany, dowsers goes down the family line. There's like generation after generation of dowsers. And then they have woodcuts of Germans from the 16th century, guy dowsing for gold, gold veins for the king. So the technology, you could rely on the technology as a backup, as a confirmation, but dowsing has been reliable for at least 500 years that we can go back to the history of it.
Yeah, Terry, you've heard of switching gears. You've heard of thank you, Jim. You've heard of the LiDAR method too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's another piece of equipment that's $40,000-$50,000. It's not cheap to get into to professional treasure hunting.
No, it's not. I mean, I remember when my dad bought two pieces from Europe, and they were $100,000, and I attended the training class because he bought two of them. He got 2 free training classes, and sometimes you have to pay an extra $10,000 just for the training class. But there are other factors with training classes. When I attended the training classes, they were in California, and I definitely had jet lag when I was sitting there. I followed the first 3 days, but by the time the 4th day came, I was shot in the foot. And I was so glad my dad was with it because he understood the whole process, because he was a surveyor and he knew all about heavy duty equipment. So he followed it, and I said, Dad, I'm out. I understand a lot of this, but I think what we need to do now is, when we get home, is do practical application. And that's the other thing. When you do the LiDAR, it can go via drone, or it can go via a helicopter, large scale. I mean, Josh Gates is using LiDAR for stuff. He found what he thought was going to be some super important Nazi coinage or a treasure chest. I believe it was in Austria or Germany. And when they used the LiDAR, something showed up. They couldn't quite tell what it was. They dug 2 or 3 feet, and unfortunately, it was the septic piping. I mean, what a nice dig, nice smelling, But at least it found it. It was the only thing that popped up that was unique.
I think that's the first time Josh Gates ever found anything, honestly.
They found a dime or something, or a quarter at a site in, I believe, Argentina. But I do think LiDAR is the answer to a lot of treasure hunting. I mean, but you got to pinpoint the sites, You got thousands of acres. Well, yeah, you use it. It's great. But if you have investors, don't screw them. They'll put you in jail so fast. It's definitely, like I said, it's very complicated. So, Terry, what else can we answer for you? We tell people teamwork. Location.
So I'm going to bring up the deal. I work with some girls that got fascinated by, out here where we live. There's a cold case, Susan Powell, where she turned up missing. Her husband was crazy. He eventually killed himself and his kids, and they've never ever found Susan Powell. And Ginette, I remember a long time ago you hit me up when I talked to you. You says, we ought to go find her for this family, and that was, I was working out of state at the time, so I didn't have time to do it, and I'm back in state now. And so when these girls told me about that, that clicked into my mind. I thought I need to call Ginette. So with your help, Ginette, man, we're gonna go find Susan Powell and for the family. That's a treasure for the family, wanting to know what happened to their daughter and
closure.
And closure, yeah. And so, but with that said, without the tools, without you're back in Virginia and we're here in Utah, and we've got to be your eyes and ears, and unless we're doing our job, you can't do your job. You've asked me to get you things, and it's going to go nowhere if we don't do our job and get you the information. It's going to go nowhere. And so I guess what I want to say is you can't do it all. You have to have help. You have to be able to put feet on the ground. You have to come up with the maps, the information, the to get to you to help you do your job.
Ginette, did you tell them the story about how you found the businessman who fell into a tunnel in the Caribbean?
No,
and you found him? A European businessman went hiking out of the hotel, and he disappeared. He ended up falling into like a cave, and they were searching and searching, and nobody could find him. But you pinpointed the location where they could find him.
With my work, what I do is if I get a map, I say right here, and I try to get the landmarks all around it. And I said, he's in this hole, but it's not a regular hole. It's not like a water well. So I have to define all the details. And I said, it's really weird. He just fell in this hole on an angle, and it's really strange because there's a tree there with cover, so that's why you can't find him, because you can't see the hole. And I think he was in that hole for about 10, don't quote me, I think 10 days. And when the helicopters came back, because they'd gone to the wrong area, he heard the helicopters, and he had to literally crawl out of the hole. Who knew, but in some of the Bahamas or some of the islands, the Caribbean, they have volcanic holes that are so old that if you're walking along and you don't see this hole, you fall into it, and you're stuck there for the rest of your life if you can't get out. And when he heard the helicopter, he thought to himself, oh my God, they're still looking for me. And he had told his wife that he knew that it was treacherous where he was hiking. If I go missing, call some dowsers in Russia, because he was a Russian executive, or Lithuanian or whatever. And he goes, call the dowsers and they'll get somebody to find me. And it was funny because they had to call 10 of them, and they finally called my dad, and he goes, call my daughter. And my dad was at my house, and I said, yeah, sure. So they faxed me a map, and I said, right here. He's right here. But he's still alive. And I had to give all these details. I said, I explained all the scratches and cuts and everything. And what was interesting is on that particular case, a lot of people, and I would say a good 50, had called in that they'd seen him out partying with another woman, and that he was out partying with a group of college students. So they got a lot of misinformation. So the cops didn't take the case very seriously because they kept leaning toward, oh, he's out partying. He's not lost. But I guess it took him, he had totally crawled from the hole to like a mile away to the road, and then another mile, I guess, closer to the city, and a cop drove by, saw him, and put him in the car and took him to the hospital. But, I mean, he has pictures. He wrote a story called I guess it was the birth of Nevis, born again in Nevis or something. Nevis is an island in the Caribbean. It's very gorgeous. It's a small island. A lot of executives go there because A, it's more expensive. B, there's not a ton of resort renting, and but the hiking is really nice. But he was fully aware of the fact, being a diplomat, that there are holes, and some of the holes are marked. I have to tell you, in some of these Caribbean places, they're totally marked, and others are not. So you could, it could cave in. And a lot of people are unaware, when you go hiking, and there's another thing people don't do that really freaked me out, Terry, is when you're going hiking and you're going treasure hunting, you need at least 3 or 4 people. You got to have somebody with a gun, somebody with a stun gun, somebody with a machete. You got to stop a bear. You got to have bear spray. I mean, the list goes on, right?
Oh yeah, and you just reminded me. I used to, when I was younger, I used to go out by myself all the time, just
Oh
because
my God.
it's just easier than dealing with other people, your time schedules, and you want to go here and they want to go. So I went by myself all the time. Well, one time I happened to take two other people with me, and I was going. I heard there was a story where some Spanish gold bars was found by some kids, and I went through to this cave where I thought it was, and it was a tight fit. I pushed myself as far as I could, and I got stuck. I couldn't go forward. I couldn't go backward. I was stuck, and the way I got there is I had to put my back against one side of the wall of this inside this cave and my feet against the other, and inch my way up 25 feet to get into this little small tunnel that took off. And when I got stuck, if I hadn't had some them people there, I'd still be there. I wasn't going nowhere. And
No, and
after that day, I always took somebody with me.
yeah, you learned the hard way. But
Yep.
You
I
also,
was glad I had somebody with me that day.
yeah, I don't doubt it. And plus, you probably start swelling from the soreness, which makes you more difficult to get out of the hole.
Oh, it was bad when they got up there and they had to grab my feet and start pulling me. And when I went in, I turned sideways. I let all the air out of me, and I pushed with my feet as hard as I could, and I got stuck right on my sternum. Well, when they come and pulled me out, my shirt started rolling up and wedging me even tighter. So by the time they got me out, man, I was all scratched up, beat up. But I was happy I got out.
Yeah, you were alive. That's the important thing.
Yeah, but the question is, and then that goes to show you, did you have the right light, the right flashlight? Did you have the right tools to see the other side? I mean, I'll tell you a story. One of my Utah clients called me about. They had gone to a lake north of Nevada, and they were all going in there to find treasure. And I guess at one time it was they had the tracks, the train tracks going in with the carts, and so they pushed everything aside and they kept going in. And one, like within a couple hours, one of their buddy was thrown 30 feet by a ghost out of the cave. 30 feet out of the cave. And of course, he almost broke his arm, or did break his arm. But the other guys were starting to go back in, and the guy that was thrown 30 feet said, "Don't go in. There is a ghost in there. That's real."
And he ain't happy.
No, and he said, "I knew it was there. I just didn't want to tell you because I didn't." He didn't want to tell his teammates because he goes, "I didn't want to scare you, and I didn't know if it was really real, but apparently it was." So a lot of people are unaware that the Spaniards would cut the feet off of the Peruvians or the slaves, and then let them die there to protect the gold or the treasure. So when they came back, it was there. I mean, can you imagine? You're literally bleeding to death, sitting there, helping the Spaniards with their treasure, stolen goods. So of course you're going to be a little angry. You think?
Yep. So do you think that they can do that? They can hold a spirit there to guard this? Do you think,
Well, if you think about the pirates, they were all over the Caribbean. They had access to Africa and slaves from Africa. So it wouldn't be unheard of to pick up a few tidbits about voodoo, hoodoo, or the other things like that kind of religion or magic. And they knew enough to curse a place. Because the blood sacrifice is one of the most powerful things to trap a spirit and keep the energy there.
My father said when he went out on one of his jobs in Arizona, they found foot bones. They didn't find treasure, but they found the foot bones, which, that signifies, there's treasure here. So, nothing happened to them. Sometimes the equipment, the high-tech equipment can quit, or it just doesn't react positively.
Yep.
But in haunted situations, you hear all the time on those ghost investor programs how their batteries are always drained. That's a good sign that a spirit is in the area trying to manifest something, because they're pulling energy out of every place in the atmosphere, including the batteries.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I guess we've all been very lucky. We haven't been hurt by them. Not to say one day that's going to happen, but
so like I said, I used to be a skeptic on ghosts and all that because I'd never seen one. I just, but I happened to see one here. I don't know, it's been 2-3 years ago now. Sat and talked to him. I didn't even know he was a ghost. Looked like a regular person to me. I had no clue it was a ghost until 4 months later. 4 months later, I'd found out he'd been dead for 10 years.
Wow, that's cool.
And that I didn't know what to think about that. My mind was racing, trying to remember the event, what happened, how it happened, what. And it wasn't like he really told me any clues or any secrets, but he told me a great adventure of his life where he got stranded in the desert and they had to hike out, out on the Superstition Mountains, and that I don't want to say freaked me out, but it bewildered me, And if I hadn't ran into another person that was with him, and when he told me the story, I'd have had no clue that I was talking to a ghost. I'd have had no idea. It wasn't until 4 months later, And
he told you the guy was dead for 10 years?
Well, yeah. So what happened was he told me how he wanted to go out there in the Superstition Mountains, see these old pioneer kilns where they made coke for furnaces and stuff, and how there was supposed to be a heart on the mountain by them, and he wanted to go see him. So he talked with a guy, Salvador Delgadillo, and took him out, had Salvador take him out there, and then they got flat tires and stuck. Well, I just happened to know Salvador, but I never told him that. Well, 4 months later, I'd heard that there was some Egyptian artifacts found out in that area, so I asked Sal. I was out there in Arizona, and I asked Sal, I said, do you know about any Egyptian artifacts being found out here? And he says, well, there's one guy, he found some Egyptian or Oriental artifacts in an area. Come on, I'll take you out the area. I don't know exactly where, but I'll take you to the area. So we go out there, and he says, stop, look over there. See, them are the old pioneer coke kilns. And then it clicked into me that, this is where that guy told me Salvador took him, and they got stranded. So I started telling Salvador all about it. Hey, I met a buddy of yours 4 months ago. He told me you guys come out here, got flat tires, got stranded, had to hike out he went into a big, long, detailed story, and Salvador would say, yeah, that was Jim Hatton. I says, yeah, I met him 4 months ago, and he looked at me kind of funny and says, you couldn't have. And I says, what do you mean he couldn't have? He says, Jim's been dead for 8 to 10 years. And I thought, no way, this guy was alive. I talked to him. And he says, there must have been somebody who Jim told the story, and he's telling you the story. But this guy told the story, like, in detail. He was reliving this story, and I thought, well, Salvador's wrong. So I went and talked to another guy that knew him, and he says, yeah, Terry, you'd have liked him. He was an engineer, at the time I was working on some power plants in Wyoming. And I told this guy I was working in Wyoming. He told me he was from there and worked on them. And anyway, this other guy says, yeah, you'd have liked him. He was some kind of an engineer, and he worked on them power plants like you are out in Wyoming. And I says, yeah, I met him 3 or 4 months ago. And he looked at me, he says, you couldn't have. He's been dead for 8 to 10 years. So I went back to where I met him. I met him at the Apache Junction Museum, the Lost Dutchman Museum. I went back there. I wanted to find this guy. So I went back and looking for him. I asked the people working there, I says, where's Jim? Jim Hat around? And they says, man, I've been here 3 years. There's no guy named Jim Hat works around here. He says, wait a minute, let me go talk to one of the old guys here. They go back and they say, yeah, Jim, he helped start this museum, but he passed away 8 to 10 years ago. So I don't know what to think about that, I talked to him. He didn't look dead to me. I talked to him, and it was a wild experience, and I don't know what to even think about that.
There are stories like that where these people are 4D, that the coloring, they look totally alive.
He looked alive to me.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a case over in, I think it was Superstition Mountain, where there was a plane wreck, and gosh, I think it was over 50 people, and every once in a while, and they don't know when or how, but you can see these people as if they're walking on a trek to go back to the plane or leaving the plane, trying to get back down the hill from the plane wreck.
Huh.
And you can see the plane, but you can see these 50 or 60 people like they're in line, like elementary school, you're in line.
Yeah.
And even pilots have seen it. Helicopter people have seen it. And they land and they say, God, there was a plane crash over here. You know how you can do the longitude, latitude, or either the vector. And they go, it was really weird. All these people in older-looking clothes were over here with this plane wreck, and they were walking down the hill.
Huh.
And, of course, the pilots at the airport, one of those little ones, said, yeah, that those people have been sighted, SIGHTED, sighted before, but the problem is they're all dead. They're dead people from a plane crash. And, of course, the pilots that saw it were just in awe, because he said, no, they can't be. They can't be dead. He goes, oh, yeah, they were found years later.
Wow.
Because, so it's the same similar thing, 4D, and you never know when it's going to happen. I mean, I have a couple of things happen in my house, but, my house is not haunted. How do I say this? I live in Richmond, Virginia, so the Civil War is to here, and there's some graveyards not too far from my house. And it's really funny. I call it the House of Girls. And my daughters had a bunch of friends come over, the cheerleaders and so forth. And when the boys would come over here, the ghosts, and I want to say 2 of them would come to the house, and they would make all these noises like they were wearing Civil War boots, and they'd walk across the wood floor, and they would open the kitchen cabinets, and the guys would look up, see the kitchen cabinets open, thought nothing of it. Then they'd turn around, and the kitchen cabinets were closed. Open, closed, open, closed. They were so scared they all took Ubers home. It was funny, but it was almost as if the guy was protecting my daughters or the girls from what was going on.
Yeah.
And
or they didn't want the competition.
I guess I even had a little girl who came here, told me her name, and she was skipping up and down the hall, and people would say, "I thought you said you only had 2 kids. Who's the little girl?" I said, "Oh, nobody." I'm not going to sit here and tell people, oh, yeah, by the way, there's a ghost that comes here from a homicide case, and she just skips up and down the hall, and people see her, and they've actually gone down the hall looking for her. Then they come back, and they said, who are you babysitting? What are they doing? Hide and go seek? And I said, no. And finally, I had to admit to one of my friends, I said, I was working on a homicide case, and the ghost comes here. And by chance, the family member was on the internet, and I said, you're not going to believe this, but, I've had dreams of your little sister being here, and I've had dreams of where she's located. And I said, look, I only, if you ever want me to help find her, I will. They haven't moved forward. I did contact the cop that worked on the case, and here's something that went into play. I worked with him, but I got involved with someone else that wanted all the media attention for finding the little girl. I gave him the cross streets and everything, and I said, she's over in this area. Well, the other guy goes, she's not there, she's over here. So it created total conflict, total confusion, and I had to boot the guy to the curb. I mean, he just, the cop was willing to talk to me and willing to go do the find, but the other idiot was just causing so many problems. I just had to let go. And I've been sitting on it for years, and nobody has ever looked where I told them where the body was.
Wow.
And the little girl told me, oh, by the way, Ginette, I'm with 2 other people, 2 other kids.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, I mean, what can you do? We're in it's like you guys looking for Susan Powell. I mean, you got to get the maps, you got to do the job, then you got to go in the field. But then with your job, you also have to get a retired, willing to volunteer fire expert to pinpoint, like when we have the area, he can say, oh, yeah, this was burnt like 10 years ago. I understand it. This is a good find. Let's go search some more.
Yep.
Would a cadaver dog help in that situation with the burnt body?
It would. The only problem is I suspected that they used plastic bags. So a burn expert, fire department guy would say, yeah, you can do it with dogs or you can't do it with dogs. So, again, everything is complicated. But, so hopefully, and I do believe that poor Susan was killed and then put in bags and then set on fire. So you would need some fire department experts, and the only way to do it is to get the retirees who are willing to help out.
Yep, and you told me we got a 98% chance of finding her, so we're going to go find her.
Yeah, some cases are just easier than others. Like I have to do a missing dog case tonight, and I actually picked up on it really fast. I'm going to be doing it with Jim tonight later, and hopefully we'll be on target and the lady can get her dog back. But unfortunately, there's a chain of command with the missing dog. So here's an example. The dog was at a park. Fireworks went off. The dog took off. Somebody found the dog, stole the dog, sold it to a friend. So somebody totally unaware of the fact the dog was stolen has the dog. So, yeah. So these are the weird things, the paranormal and treasures. Because even animals are considered treasure, you know.
That's somebody's treasure, yep.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine having my dog stolen. Yeah, thank you very much.
You know, since you're in Utah, one of the projects I would love to work on, because when the original Mormons moved out there, they went into the caves and took all the bat guano out to fertilize their fields. And when they emptied it all, they found these giant skulls.
Ah, you're talking out in Lovelock, Nevada.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm sure there's more of them out there. And I would love to do a little project and find some of those.
Jim, me and you, man, amazing. I want to find one too, and I am working on locating one right now. So,
but you should get our help. You know, we'll be more than happy to work on that for you, Terry.
Okay,
that would be fun. That would be so fun.
Cave, Brewer's Cave. I think I know the location. I found things that indicate 100% this location, but you know, it'd always be nice to have confirmation that it is right. You know.
Yeah, you know, a friend of mine called me, one of my other treasure hunters, and he said there was a whole graveyard found of them.
Yeah, this seems to be like for some reason the Nephilim are becoming very popular, and I guess they're finding more of them. They can't hide it anymore. They can't suppress that information anymore because of the internet, YouTube, and things like that.
I mean, do you know how big the one is, Terry? Is it in Utah or Wyoming?
I remember seeing the skull on a program. They have it at a college or a museum, put away in the back room.
Yeah,
and it's like 2 to 3 times a normal human skull.
Yeah, the government now has taken it. They've suppressed the information, and why? That doesn't make any sense to me. What do they care if there's giants? You know, it just makes no sense to me. So that makes you think. You know, until you actually find one, see one. You know, is it just a conspiracy theory? Are these giants really real? Are the government really trying to hide them? And if so, why? You know, that's why I'm a curious person. I want to find one. I want to know if they're real. I want to find it. Just like UFOs. I'm not really into UFOs, but if they're real, I want to see one. You know.
Ginette sent me a picture. Remember, you sent me a picture one, and it was a femur, and the femur was 6 feet tall.
Wow.
You know, so that was a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they I guess some archaeologists were working on some work in, might have been Lithuania or Romania, and they found 6 bodies that were about 20, 24 feet tall or something.
Really?
I have a picture of it, and it's just, it looks like a joke. I mean, they're so big, and a guy who's 6 foot tall is standing next to the skeletal remains of what they did have, and it looks fake. It's unbelievable. But you know, even if you find the giant, what would be so great is possibly the teeth are in there. You could do DNA where it's from.
That's what I would like to do. Yep, I would like to do that. The teeth, the hair, Yep.
Well, it's a mystery we're ready to do, right, Jim?
Man. Yeah, I mean that would be like fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Just make sure there are no large giants still alive over there.
No, I think they're.
You better run fast. I heard they ate people.
They had to. I mean, think about it. That size of a person had to have so much protein to maintain that muscular and that size. They had to eat people because they're probably slower to easier to catch in the day.
Well, that's what they say. These giants were meat eaters. That's why the Indians gathered together and teamed up and killed them all off, because the Indians got tired of being the food supply for these giants.
That's what what they said. The articles imply that they ate their kids, their babies, their dogs. Oh my God. What is that? Sushi, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Giant sushi.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm a treasure hunter. I think I know where a treasure is. I've done all the research. I want confirmation or help from you. What do? I got to call you. Then what kind of information do I got to give you? What do you need?
I tend to like to hear the story behind your search, and then I'd like to get a map, and then I'd like to get a paycheck out of it.
Yeah. Yep.
And then I try to get a contract agreement where I get a percentage rate on what they find. Some of these people don't need investors. Some of the other ones have investors. So, again, there's a lot of paperwork. I have some of the contracts here. I can send them, or they can send me, but I'll take it to a lawyer.
And so after you hear their story and whatnot, you can tell if they're on the right track, if they're off, light years off, miles off, or
right.
If it's even a real story, if it's wasting their time.
Well, one lady called me, and she had 300 acres, and she was told that on the 300 acres, she had some treasure. And I said, no, I think you've got cemeteries on your property, and the treasure is whatever these people were wearing when they died. Now, what I heard was, especially if it's pirates, sometimes they'd be buried with a coin, and then sometimes they'd have a necklace around their neck, and they wore coins, which they gave that to the graveyard people so that would pay for their burial. But I've heard all sorts of stories, but I did work on her case, and I charged her $500 just to do the 300 acres to see if anything was there. But I initially thought nothing was there, and I still got nothing was there. I got a case out of New York, and I told them, if you want me to work on the case, it's $2,500 just to see if there's something there, because it was quite a bit of acreage. And then they called back and said, no, you come on up here, find it, and then we'll pay you. And not a paycheck, but a commission only.
Yeah. So
a lot of people are still armchair treasure hunters, and I get it. So you want to go do a house from the 1918 or 1864, go ahead.
Yeah,
if you find something, you find something.
Your time's valuable, and you can't just on a whim, not knowing, you can't just head here, there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, even treasure hunters, their time is valuable. What are they going to do? Go to 100 sites, find nothing, and say, she told me there's nothing here.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. Like,
in one of her father's books, he talked about when he was looking for treasure, using the old the instant cameras with the instant development, the Polaroid cameras.
Yep.
Remember those?
Yep.
Yeah.
A certain time of day, like just before sunrise or just before sunset, the gold will emit an aura. That's why probably where the pot of gold, there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, because there's he described a light comes off the gold, and this certain light from just as the sun set or just as the sun rises, it's that weird twilight. And you can, if you have an idea where the gold is and you can take pictures, you can get it on film, and that would be a verification.
Yeah, it's kind of like the aurora borealis. It shows up.
Yes.
If the atmospheric conditions are just right. If the I had back in the early 90s, I used to late 80s, early 90s, I used to sell and rent metal detectors, and I had a guy come up from Mexico who found a treasure that exact way. He's seen the strange lights. He dug down there and found a pot of silver. And he said all the other people, the townspeople and that, thought it was ghosts, spirits. They was scared of it. So anyways, he was wanting to buy a metal detector that goes so deep so he could go find more of them. But yeah, you're right. Ginette's dad, Lewis, had that book on how to find these treasure flares, with the Polaroid camera, with the special filters on them. Yeah.
Yep, and the thing that's interesting is the book on treasure hunting using parapsychology is being sold by someone out of China or Japan or something, one of those Asian countries, and they're charging $1,000 a book.
Really?
And I have 5 left over, and I charge $300 because it was such a popular book. What I'm going to do after my first book is re-edit his book so that it flows easier, and then I'll write another book on probably true crime or mysteries. But and he shows pictures of the flare. It's a weird word, but
Yep,
it looks like a flare.
Your dad sent me that book. I have that book. Yep.
Yeah, he was really bad about giving them away at one time.
He did. He gave me several of his books and sent me a lot of his information on his professional treasure hunting secrets. How to build your own equipment, some of your own equipment and stuff like that. Your
right.
dad, he was a great guy and a wealth of knowledge and loved to share. And like you said, he gave a lot of stuff away.
I have a few left, but not many. And he wrote about 8 books. I mean, a lot of people don't know that he wrote about 8 books, but again, there are not many left. And he's now 90, going on 91, still a fighter, and he's right now he's in dementia land. His book doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
So, but he still loves to write.
I know he was secretive though. He wouldn't talk to me on the phone. He would send me coded letters with that Jefferson wheel or something like that.
Oh my God, really?
Yep.
Yeah, he was definitely into the coded writing, and I found one of them. Some of the stuff I found, I've got a bunch of crystals I'm going to be selling left over from him. Some of the stuff I'm going to send to the American Society of Dowsers, and I tell people, go take classes in it. It's not as easy as it looks. A lot of people are thinking, oh, I can't do it. Yes, you can. You just have to have training.
And with that said, you're also a master dowser.
Well, I don't use the word master dowser. I'm in the word of expert, but he liked that term. I just think that some of us are just more advanced. I mean, I have been impressed by some people. I think there was a woman, Louise in Charlottesville, and she's excellent with her dowsing. I've met some other people Graham Gardner, excellent with their dowsing. And they're consistent, and that's what's interesting, to say the least, So then you have people that, what is the word I want to use? It's, I hate to use this word, half-ass effort.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just don't, they wish it to happen, like Jim said. They just wish and wish and wish. And so it's a sloppy outcome, and the facts are not there to support the situation. It just isn't.
When I was looking for a teacher or somebody to show me how to dowsing, you can pick up the idea from books and all that, but I still thought you need someone with experience to explain it all. Because I called every New Age bookstore in the area. I called every dowser on the list of the Dowser Society, and none of them were actually doing anything.
Huh.
None of them.
Really?
Yes. I mean, there's ones in South Florida. I didn't go to any of their meetings, but they say it just seemed like they sat around and gave each other a plaque, for something, because they did their own little things on an acre ground. Somebody would hide a bunch of stuff and they would douse it out.
Huh.
But they didn't have any stories about finding water or finding a person or moving water, which some dowsers can do. They can get water to go back to the well. I wanted to find that. And so I started calling out of state, and that's how I got a hold of Ginette.
Ah.
Yeah, but he's a good student. I mean, you have to be driven or motivated to keep doing this. It really is hard work. It's like you, Terry, constantly trying. Like the first time I think we talked, or before we talked, I kept having dreams about Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and where some treasure would be, and what location, and what the name of the town was. And I pulled up the map, and there's the town. And I thought to myself, holy crap, they really do have Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid treasure hidden over here in Utah.
Wow.
And then I watched the documentary, and I found out that Butch and his buddy would have family reunions up in Utah. I mean, who knew? I mean, so if you go according to a true story, that certainly increases your accuracy rate to find treasure. Dowsing is amazing. I can't believe what I find with dowsing.
Really?
I mean, Jim was
so many people underestimate it. They really do. They look at it as like, oh, it's just dowsing. Anybody could do it. No, they can't. It takes practice and it takes dedication. Again, I didn't find any. Oh, I could teach you dowsing. I said I get the gist of it, but no one ever does anything with it because they don't. It's not worthy of their attention.
Yep.
I will tell you one thing weird, Terry. A lot of people are missing water or need water wells. I'm getting calls from Tennessee, North Carolina, and I'm here in Richmond. Tennessee was 8 to 12 hours away on 2 different projects. Charlotte was 4 hours away, and what happened was a lot of the drillers are now charging a lot more money for locating water wells. And so I charge, of course, a decent amount for water wells, $600 to $1,200. But people are like, well, you're just a dowser. You should be $50. Really? Okay. So if your driller goes in there and does four spots, he's going to charge you $40,000.
Yeah.
Now, if I tell you where water is and he does 1 spot, you do a drilling for $10,000. So let me think: do I want to pay $50 or do I want to pay $10?
Yep.
I mean, so a lot of people don't really value the dowser as much. But then again, some of the drillers are very poo-poo on water diviners because they don't want you saving money for yourself. They're just like, no, don't do that.
Well,
I will tell you, out of all the jobs I've done for water so far, I had one site I didn't find water, and I found that to be really weird. But if the driller goes in and puts the bite down either too fast or on an angle, you're not going to find your water. So it's not really the water dowser, and it could be the driller sending it down too quickly and blocking the water flow.
Huh.
There's a lot of factors, you know.
I have an old book about water dowsing, and the gentleman who wrote the book stated that he goes, all his wells that he found never ran dry. And we're talking in California. You know, sometimes after an earthquake, he has to go back and redo them because the land changed or something shifted underground and the water changed its course.
Yeah.
And that's where they go back they bring the water back to the well. They could do that. It's just amazing. That I really I can't wait to get in more practice with that because I really love that.
Well, if all goes well, I'll be moving down to Florida in 3 years, and I guess Jim and I will be on the hunt for some water wells. But we're looking to my husband and I are looking to buy a second home in the Midwest, and I'll be able to do water wells over there. But actually in the paper yesterday, or should I say on the internet yesterday, is Mexico City is losing their water at excessive rates.
Really?
And they're really worried about water for all their people. And I can't imagine. But if you do a little dowsing and you pinpoint where the water well should be lubed a little with just it's a wire, you know, I guess you call it a wire or whatever. And you reground the water will flow back into the well. So we're going to see what happens because they're having more problems in California with water.
Oh, huge. I just finished up a job in California last year, and there were signs up all over the place saying they must be having a fight over the water with the ranch or the fruit growers or because they had signs up over all these orchards and that saying, hey, food is important too. We need to water this to feed people, so they must be having a fight of who gets the water, the people in the homes or the farmers or there must be a big battle going on over the water.
Well,
California always is. It's illegal to even catch your home water from the rain because it belongs to the state.
Crazy.
So water rights are really off the charts over there.
So I tell a lot of people, I said, if you really want to go talk to your loved one and you want just the facts, ma'am, because the psychic can tell you lots of stuff, but the e-box is even just as good. And so I send people to Tony Rathman. Now, let's say you're doing a treasure case, for example. What if you combine a dog or the e-box machine, a psychic, which is all parapsychology, dowsing, and then you take a guy who's got a story, like Terry Carter, and says, oh, okay, I want to go over here and find the Nephilims. And then my friend Tony could check it out and see if the Nephilims can come through and say, oh, yeah, we're over here. And then I pinpoint and Jim pinpoints the same area. Then it certainly narrows down a focus for you where to hunt.
But have you got anything that you want to tell people for closing this thing up, or any suggestions, anything you'd like to add to what we've talked about?
I would like to say, get your students, people like Jim, get your jobs in, and keep hunting. Have fun, because everything is a mystery. And Jim, what would you like to say, Mr. Jim?
Well, just like what you've told me, just the facts. Try to separate when you're looking into things, and if you're using dowsing or something, ask questions that are just factual, left, right, up, down, how deep, and the moment your brain starts going off into a fantasy of finding treasure, seeing it, digging it up, and everyone going, hooray, stop and bring yourself back to just the facts.
Practicality, yeah.
Yes, you just got to be grounded into, in remote viewing, that's what they teach you. It's like, you don't just, you see a pointy thing and all that. As soon as you say Eiffel Tower, you judged it, and it might not be the Eiffel Tower. So you have to use descriptive words and describe the area. The more descriptive for the question, the better off you are.
That makes sense. So, one more time, Ginette and Jim, if you got, how does somebody get in touch with you and to enlist your services, list your help, and find some treasure?
Okay, so I can be reached in Virginia on 571-358-1444, 571-358-1444. If I don't answer, leave a message. If you don't hear from me, call and leave another message. And then Jim is in Florida on
954-534-6611, but please text. You don't know how many sales calls I get. I have to ignore them from out of state. So texting me saying you heard about us, about Ginette and your show, that I'll understand. But
awesome.
The Terry Carter search and seizure.
Yeah. And with that said, Ginette and Jim, man, I appreciate you too, and thank you. And with that said, that's a wrap.